I'd like to call this October 16th, 2020 Emergency Board of Education meeting to order. Mr. Anagnostou, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Salee?
Here.
Mr. Micko?
Here?
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
And Mrs. Hausen.
Here.
All are present. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next on our agenda is public comment. Our first person is Jenny Crosby. If you come to the podium, have you done this before?
No, maybe not recently.
If you could just let us know your name and your address, and you have approximately 3 minutes.
My name is Jenny Crosby. My address is 8364 Barton Drive. I have lived in Strongsville for a long time. My older boys graduated from Strongsville High School, and I currently have a son in the middle school. I've always been in support of the district and everything that they do. I've voted for all the levies. I do believe that you guys, the decisions that you've made, I don't envy you. I know that these decisions are not easy to make and you don't come by them lightly. But I just wonder, about the timing of pushing all of these things for the kids to go back to school 5 days a week. I've been told on several occasions myself, through social media, through email correspondence with the schools, that I have the option for solo. But I don't feel like that's a comparable option. Our teachers in the district are amazing. The curriculum that they provide to the students is amazing. And saying that that's our only option is not acceptable to me. And I know that there's other parents in the district that feel the same way. We have the ability to provide remote learning to the students. We know that it's possible. We've done it. When I originally made the decision to pull my son back into the district out of solo, when you guys said we were going for 9 weeks, I felt like that was a good decision, because I felt like that would give the district enough time to figure out all of these things. And then shortly after that, we went back to, now we're going back to school blended learning. I never made the decision that I wanted my child to be in solo, because I don't think the kids don't belong in school. I mean, the kids belong in school. I think that's a united theory across the board, whether you want your kids in solo or you want them at home. Like, I was never making the decision for solo because I don't think that they should be in school. But I want it to be safe. And just this week, we had 30 kids sent home on Monday after being exposed over the weekend. And the students were in the building for 3 periods before they got sent home because of contact tracing. Some of the decisions are out of your hands. I know that. Like, the county decides who has to be quarantined. But I'm in a unique position where I have 1 kid in 1 building, but there are people who have multiple kids in multiple buildings, and every other day are worried about if one of their kids are going to be sent home on quarantine. That's not feasible. It's not realistic to expect that people can make those kind of adjustments in a short period of time. And I value education, and I think that all of the kids in the district, like everyone that lives in this district, lives here because we value the education that this district provides to our kids. But everyone should have equal opportunity to it. And if these kids are being sent home in the middle of the day for 14 days on quarantine, they're not getting any interaction with the teachers. They're not getting any of the quality education that the school district that is available to the rest of the kids in the district, and it just isn't fair. So I hope that when you make whatever decision you're going to make moving forward about what we're going to do for the next semester, that you think about all of those things, because it's not a black and white area. These kids are suffering, like they've gotten so much taken away from them, and they need this interaction with their teachers, with the other kids in the class, and they're not getting it 2 days a week for 70 minutes. I mean, it's not realistic to think that this is the same quality education that the district is able to provide to all of the students. And that was the only comment that I had to make.
Thank you. Next is, one more time, Gianna Manzo. And again, if you'd state your name and address, and you have approximately 3 minutes.
Can I take this down, or should I keep it up? I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. but
Okay.
You're broadcasting, so if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
If you'd like to take it down, you can.
That's okay. My name's Gianna, address 17023 Raccoon Trail. Good? Okay. So, good evening, board members. First off, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, and thanks for all that you do for the children. You definitely all deserve raises this year. I don't know how that works, but you're definitely working harder than any other year. I'm here tonight on behalf of myself and other parents in the district. I'm a registered nurse at Fairview. I work at Fairview. I've been there almost 2 years. So I've been working with COVID patients since the start and their families and all that. We've done a great job containing the virus at the hospital. It hasn't been overwhelmed, so I'm very happy about that. I want to start off by talking about the creation of a vaccine. The making of a vaccine starts off with the exploratory stage, which is the basic lab research. This process takes 2 to 4 years. Next is the preclinical stage, where they test the safety in animals before humans. This takes another 1 to 2 years. Phases 1, 2, and 3 are next, and each phase takes a span of 1 to 4 years. Only then will the vaccination be brought to the general public. Usually vaccines take average 7 to 10 years to come out and to be considered safe in humans. I know that they are rushing the COVID vaccine, but it could still take a while before we see it. We don't know. I think that we need to figure out a safe way to stay in school. I know a lot of people are waiting on the vaccine, but we never know when that could happen. So I feel like if we figure out how to do it safely and be in school safely before then, it would benefit us instead of waiting years for a vaccine. I have a daughter. She's in first grade at Kinsner. Her physical health, socialization skills, educational needs are all being met with in-person learning. And I feel like that wasn't being met when she was at home. She was really struggling. I feel like our children's mental health aren't being taken into consideration at times. You don't see the numbers of students who are struggling with depression, suicidal thoughts on a daily basis because they are not plastered on the news every single day. Children with developmental delays, I know that you guys have special programs for them, but they thrive at school. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. My mother, she watches a little boy who's blind, and he's been behaving well at home because of school. I think about the children who are home alone all day because their parents work by themselves, or online predators that has been on the rise as well since COVID. It's a very scary time we're in, and I understand it's hard for everybody. We are blessed in Strongsville to be privileged in a lot of ways, and I feel like we could be an example for other districts. Just a little bit about online school. My daughter couldn't really figure out the computer all that well, so I was doing a lot of her homework because she couldn't figure out how to maneuver things. And she has learned so much just being in school full time the past 3 weeks. I'm a pretty young mom, but I want my daughter to have the best education that she could possibly have. I feel like the parents who can stay at home, they don't like solo, which I don't understand all that, so I can't speak on it. But I feel like that we should all have the option to stay home or to send our kids in. Sorry, I lost my place. I'm just sad for all the kids and how we all have to fight so hard, and I know it's hard for everybody. We need to be leaders in education. I'm trying to stand up for what's right for the sake of our kids. And I know it's hard, but their futures depend on the decisions that we're all making. So that's it. Thank you.
So I do want to take a moment to thank you for your coming forward to share your words. The emotion was meaningful, and I think we all heard what you had to say, so thank you. Next is Jess Koza. You know the drill, name, address, and you have approximately 3 minutes.
Yes, so I'm Jess Koza. I live at 9812 Hazelwood Avenue. I do have one question, and I don't know if this could actually be answered right now or later, but I was just curious if the Chromebooks came in for the grades K to 2, because that's my concern when I think about everything that's happening. If we end up in remote again, are you still going to be able to have those computers for those kids? Because I have a second grader, and we're going to run into a technology issue if my kids end up home again. But I came here tonight to also tell you guys that I think the schools are doing a phenomenal job. I am concerned about the numbers rising, but I think the kids have been doing pretty good with wearing their masks, social distancing. I think the teachers are doing a fabulous job at maintaining, that demeanor that you have to have for the kids so that the kids don't think of it as scary and frightening. My kids are coming home happy. They're thriving again. It's really awesome to see. But what I also came here to ask you tonight, you guys are all community leaders. Now, I am too. I can't do this. I'm a PTA president, and there's just a certain demeanor that I have to have when I tell people you should be social distancing, you should be wearing your masks. We have to be diligent in our private lives. No, they're not telling us that we have to live at home again. It doesn't have to be fully, in your house isolated again, but we need to start being a little bit more conscious and a little bit more alert to our surroundings. Wear your masks. Let's not make it a big deal. We'll get through this. I would like our kids to stay in school. They need it. It's working out very well for them, even with all these guidelines. I'm okay with it. We're okay with it. But I am asking you guys as leaders in your communications to people, you got to help us out here a little bit. You've got to put the word out that if this doesn't continue, we're going to end up where we were back in March. And I just don't want to see that happen again, because I think things are moving in the right direction as far as in the schools. And I think we are doing a phenomenal job at it. I'm not that overly concerned that we're going to end up in a huge outbreak in our district. So that's just something that I wanted to come up here and say, that, I'm trying to do my part in telling my friends, put your mask on, or no, probably not a good idea. That looks like a very large, crowded area to be in. It's a really small thing to do, to sacrifice so that our kids can be in school. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Do you have an update on Chromebooks at the very least?
Yeah, so we have Chromebooks for kindergarten. The order for the kindergarten Chromebooks, which are touchscreen, came in, and those have all been distributed. So the only grade levels where we do not have one-to-one is still first and second grade. So we do have Chromebooks in the classrooms. On average, it's probably about 50% Chromebooks to students. And unfortunately, the 3 orders that we still have out there, they keep on backing up the delivery date. So even though we have a delivery date that was supposed to be mid-October, then it gets bumped back to later. So there's no clear indication as to when we're going to receive the orders for Chromebooks that would get first and second grade to one-to-one.
That concludes public comment. Next is superintendent's report and the heart of why we're here. So I'll turn it over to Cameron to start the discussion on our responsible restart plan.
Thank you, Mr. Micco. I put the heart of our discussion on the board, and backed by Mr. Griffin. I think there's a couple handouts left if people want them before they leave today. But as you know, months ago, we talked about, our restart guide, our restart plan, how we would use the county COVID color coding system and how that would work in our district. And so as we've talked about in the past, we've equated our learning framework of in-person, in-building blended or remote to that color coding system. We paused implementing this until just recently. So we implemented this at the pre-K to 5 level effective September 28th. We had sustained improvement in terms of the county being in orange. We had sustained improvement in terms of the positivity rate in the county. And so that's why on September 21st, we brought everybody back in a blended week. And then on September 28th, our elementary schools went to in-person, in-building every day. As it says on the board, that's what we do when the county's in orange. At the September 17th board meeting, I made a recommendation, and we had consensus of the board, to keep, even though with this plan, the high school and middle school would be in-person, in-building every day, due to the Board of Health guidance that came out, due to the fact of the number of students, the mixing of cohorts, the number of new procedural rules. I made the recommendation that we would stay in blended at the middle school and high school level for the next 4 weeks, which would be the remainder of the first quarter. And second quarter, based on the conditions, we would move to in-person, in-building learning based on if we would still be in orange. One of the things, as you could see, it's on this chart and it notes, is it says, unless immediate action needs to be taken, a 1-week notice will be given prior to moving to a different learning framework, and the district will remain in a learning framework for a minimum of a 2-week time period. So on Monday, this past Monday, when I send out my parent email, I gave the official 1-week notice. The county was still in orange. All of the data was still in a favorable spot. So I gave that 1-week notice to our middle school and high school families that effective Monday, October 19th, the start of the second quarter, we would follow the plan for orange, which means all of our middle school and high school students would move from blended into in-person and building every day, all day for all students. Well, on Thursday, the county went to red. And so if we look at, if you have the handout, the back of the handout, or I'll put the slide on the board so everybody can see, red gives some different options based on not only Strongsville, but since we border 2 other counties, we take a look at their data. So on Thursday, yesterday, Cuyahoga County changed from orange to red, and both Lorain and Medina stayed at orange. So that would put us in delivery option 1, that delivery option 1 column, which means there would be no change to pre-K to 5. Pre-K to 5 would continue to attend all kids, all day, 5 days a week. And there would be no change from the current model for middle school and high school. They would remain in blended learning. So if we follow what the chart states, on Monday, there would be no change to what we've done for the last 4 weeks, and we'd continue on with that notice, or with the procedures that we've been putting in place. The reason why we are here is because when we discussed this plan, and we came to consensus on this plan, we did not discuss the nuance of what happens if we give the 1-week notice, and then in the midst of that notice, the color changes. And so I did not have the authority as superintendent to make that decision and implement, since that wasn't a part of the discussion. So, Mr. Micko, I'm going to turn it back over to you because we need to have some discussion in terms of the 1-week notice. As we've talked about, the purpose of the 1-week notice is to give parents advance notice so they can plan childcare or any impact that this would be. And then again, the staying in the learning framework for a 2-week period of time, that's to give stability. Obviously, if things really go poorly with the data, we have in there the caveat that we could take immediate action, but we wanted to give ample notice to parents so they can make family decisions accordingly. We wanted to keep students in the learning framework for 2 weeks to give some sort of stability. So the decision up for discussion is, do we follow, I gave 1-week notice, and then we would remain with that notice for 2 weeks? Or do we go the pathway of the change in the county occurred prior to implementing that, so we would stay with delivery option 1, which would be no change to what we're doing right now? Any clarifying questions on my part of it before I turn it over for the board discussion? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I would just like to have some open discussion, and I will start. Again, and I was I was talking with Cameron earlier. If we stayed in orange, we wouldn't be here. If we went to purple, we wouldn't be here. It's because we went to red, and we went to red after telling parents on Monday that we're going to be going to in-person. And so, you know, ultimately, it's not a position that Cameron can just make the decision on his own. And based on open meeting laws, et cetera, it's not a decision that we as a board can make without having a board meeting. I recognize that calling an emergency board meeting and once the news gets that word out, it certainly heightens concern. But we are here simply to talk through the issues, have some open discussion, and ultimately get to some consensus on what the path forward is. When we were crafting this plan originally, we spent a lot of time, and I don't want it to be misinterpreted when we say hemming and hawing, but we spent a lot of time deliberating on what red means when for Cuyahoga County, when Strongsville is surrounded and borders Lorraine and Medina. And does it make sense for us to simply follow the directions from Cuyahoga? And so we've grappled with that. We grappled with that in the beginning when we were trying to craft these plans to give parents and community members a solid guideline or framework on how we wanted to make decisions. And what has currently happened, in my opinion, is exactly what we were thinking about and what we were concerned with. Cuyahoga County is red. Lorain County, Medina County are orange. And I have, at the time, one of the things that was difficult, if not frustrating, was we couldn't get the city data. And then for whatever reason, the county health department was very clear to me at that time that they wouldn't release that data. And then you move forward, and they changed their decision-making and started releasing that data. So I have the actual Strongsville data. On September 4th, there were 45 cases. These are new cases in Strongsville, 2 zip codes. September 11th, we made positive progress. There were only 13 cases. September 18th, there were 12. September 25th, we made a lot of progress. There were only 3 new cases. October 2nd, it ticked back up. It was 21 cases. And this most recent week, there are 34 new cases in Strongsville, which is certainly a trend in the wrong direction, but it's still less than the 45 when we were orange back in September. I'm not making any judgments. I'm sharing information right now. And I've shared this with the administration and the rest of the board members. I've collected the data for the cities around us, and they all tell similar stories. Currently, by one indication of 3 weeks being current cases, anything over 3 weeks is considered a case that has been, I don't want to say resolved, but 3 weeks is beyond the 14-day incubation. So it's presumed you're over COVID. We have current cases 35 in 44149, and we have current cases 32 in 44136. So we have 67 cases in Strongsville. Based on our population, that's 0.15% of COVID cases. And the reason I bring that up is it's important in our decision-making process that we understand the extent of COVID spread, not just in Cuyahoga County, not just in Ohio, but in Strongsville. As my board members know, I'm a bit of a data geek, so I will continue. If I look at Cuyahoga County, oh, where is the report? This is from the governor. Top 20 Ohio counties ranked by Ohio by highest occurrence. Cuyahoga County isn't in the top 20. It is in the bottom 4. Now, we have 1.2 million people in Cuyahoga County. This week, we had a 72.6 per 100,000 cases. The number 1 county is Athens. Now, their population is only 65,000 compared to our 1.2 million, but their per 100,000 rate is 398 cases per 100,000, and that's why they're number 1. And for me, what this means is that as a county, we are doing relatively well. We're in the bottom 4 for incidents. We are red because of all the indicators, and that is something to be aware of. But as one of our guests in Fairview Park highlighted, in our area, we are currently learning to live with the virus and taking proper precautions, those precautions being the mask wearing, those precautions being the physical distancing and the hand washing and the disinfecting, seems to be working from all the data that we can tell. The next thing I'd like to share is quite a bit of discussion, and this is my thinking process. I keep on reading about the harmful, detrimental effects occurring to our students because we continue to keep them out of school for a variety of reasons. And none of them are bad reasons. They all make sense. We want to keep our children safe. But there are consequences. Our middle school and high school students have not been back to full-time school since March. It is a long period of time. And I continue to become more and more concerned that we are going to have greater and greater negative effects. And nobody disagrees that our best option is in-person learning. Nobody disagrees that that's our goal as long as we can do it safely and we can understand the consequences. For me, this is a very long way to explain my thinking process, that I think it's reasonable that we move to what we said we were going to move to, which is in-person learning. We are red this week. I'm well aware that we may continue to be red. We'll watch those numbers. We'll see what those numbers indicate, and if necessary, we'll switch. But I do think it's important to recognize for families that we told them they were going back on Monday to in-person. We do have cases of infection of COVID at the school. We do have what looks like a large, we do have a large number of students that are quarantined. My take on that is the plan is working. If we do our contact tracing and you're in contact, we will quarantine you. We will work with those families to make sure that their education doesn't get even greater deficits. But that's working. That's making sure that we protect everyone. That 87 is going to come down. What I'll be interested to see is of that 87, how many actually also are infected by COVID. The examples I've seen around the state of other schools that have done the same thing, by and far, it's been examples of a small number that are infected, a large number are quarantined to be protective, but after 2 weeks, you discover that a large number of that quarantine, none of them actually became infected with coronavirus. All we can do is try to predict as best as we can, but my opinion is that we should go back to full-time learning for the middle school and the high school. Stress again the mask wearing, the physical distancing, the hand washing, the increased sanitation again. But I do believe that all of those skills are taught well in school. Those are those kinds of rudimentary things that we're going to have to do for a long time. You talked about 7 years for a virus. Or a vaccine. I don't think we can wait that long. On the other hand, I don't think it's coming in a month. So I do think for the overall best decision for our students. We need to make decisions that, as long as we can do it safely, we need to start moving towards that direction. We have in our plan, in our framework, we have the decision-making process. If an individual classroom goes above a threshold, that entire classroom stays home and goes remote for the proper period of time. If infection takes hold in a school, that school will be, quarantined, I guess is the phrase, but the entire school building will go remote. And then ultimately, if we're purple, we all will go remote. But at this point in time, based on why we're red and the governor saying, he's not in a position to close businesses again. He's not in a position to close schools yet. I think we can reasonably go back. But that's one person's opinion, so I'd like other board members to offer some discussion.
Well, for me, when I look at this, like you said, we spent hours and weeks preparing this model to help us make a decision for the future as to what we would do in the case of Cuyahoga County going red. You're saying we're veering from this because we said the 1 week, because we gave parents?
Yeah, I don't interpret it as veering. We said that we would give parents a 1 week notice and we would stay within that lane for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And we told parents, and they've made decisions about health, or about childcare, about planning their, what they're going to do. And I do think that to rapidly switch at this point in time, there is no right answer. But I think I'm concerned about the burden, and I'm concerned about parents scrambling today. The decision, or not the decision, the going red happened Thursday afternoon. We're here at Friday at 8 p.m., and we're expecting parents to turn on a dime by Monday.
Well, I guess I'm concerned about the rise in cases, because we were on 9/4, you said we were at 45 cases. And then at today, we're at 67 cases. I feel like we're trending up. We're trending upwards. And as these cases seem to rise, I'm afraid that if we go back to school, we'll end up turning around and sending the kids home within a week or two. So I'm leaning towards continuing to stay where we are, delivery option 1. The elementary schools are full-time, and high school and middle school stay as hybrid. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we're all parents here on the board. We all have to work with children that are at home, that are in school, depending on their age and everything else, and completely can understand the having to turn on a dime and make a decision that's going to impact next week even, and obviously, like you said, we're here at 8 o'clock on a Friday, so I don't take this lightly by any means. I think that the data that's there, the rate at which we're increasing, the projections that are there for not only Cuyahoga County, but also Lorain and Medina, from a standpoint of potential of positive cases going up, is a concern. Even though Medina is kind of looking to be almost flatline, but Lorain is looking to potentially go up. One of my concerns is that next week we're going to be all of a sudden in delivery option 2, because let's call it Lorain is all of a sudden in red, going from orange to red. So then are we going to be back here again on Friday doing this again, or discussing our board meeting on Thursday? I think to take the health in consideration of the students, the families, and not contribute to the upward trend would be the right thing to do, and stay with the delivery option 1, keeping pre-K into 5 in school, because they don't transfer or change classes, I think has helped immensely, and lessened the number of cases that we've had at the level. And I think having the blended schedule that we have currently for 6 to 12 has worked, as you said, keeping the number of quarantines, I think around 80 or so. I just think about, okay, say everybody was in school last week, 5 days a week, would that number have been 160? Would it have doubled? Sorry, mask is coming down. So I don't think, from our standpoint, I don't think we should be looking to go back to school on Monday full-time for grades 6 to 12. I think we should stay in blended. I would like to look at considering ways of amplifying the learning opportunities for kids that are at home, and we can discuss that in a little bit, depending on how this all goes. But where I'm at right now is definitely delivery option 1.
Cameron, I have a question. So we've had a fair number of students, particularly in the middle school and the high school, that are in quarantine. How are those kids currently being managed when they're at home?
For their educational services, as it's detailed in our plan, there's asynchronous learning, the Google Classrooms, the recorded videos that are posted on the Google Classroom, and then if the student's out for X number of days, then there'll be check-ins with the students. So it's not, think about when you're absent typically. It's a little bolstered from that, but it's not recreating live synchronous learning at home at this point in time. So that's how it's being managed. Google Classrooms, the teachers are recording videos, live instruction or pre-recorded, and then if the student is out, I believe it's 2 or more days, then there'll be check-ins from the teachers through a Google Meet to touch base and provide any support that's needed.
Do you know with what frequency we've had those check-ins?
Per the schedule, it's after the second day, it's periodically throughout, depending on the student's need, and they'll work that out, a plan between the teacher and the student to best meet the needs of the student. Mm-hmm.
I want to say, I think I agree with I know I agree with Mr. Micco on the staying the course with our plan and giving the 1-week notice to our parents. I think we just came off of a successful fall sports season where we let our athletes play and we didn't have any major outbreaks. We didn't have like big outbreaks, and I think we need to give our students a chance to go back those 5 days. 34 cases, new cases out of 45,000 people in Strongsville. That is, in my opinion, that is a small number. I have a high schooler, so I feel like I have a lot on the line, as do several of the board members. I talk to community members every day, several hours, people that advocate for their kids from both sides. They're passionate, intelligent friends and community members. My experience from what I'm hearing is that remote and virtual learning, it's not working. We are not giving our students 100% of their education. I think we need to try to go back 5 days.
I guess I'll ask the question again. So Lorraine and Medina go red next week, then what?
That's my concern, is are we delaying the inevitable anyway? And I don't have a good answer, and I'll be honest, I'm very torn about this. I could equally argue both sides of the table. But that's my worry. What happens when something else goes red next week and then we have to shift again? I think I'd rather keep them in blended learning and be stable than having to put them back a week and then, so would your suggestion be leave them in person 2 weeks even if Medina and Lorraine go red next week?
We're here on Thursday. We can evaluate that on Thursday.
But it would create the same problem for the parents if we decide next Thursday as if we
What I'm
decide right
saying
now.
is if the situation is similar, I would suggest we're staying in person for 2 weeks. If, on the other hand, we go from currently, what was the number? If it seems like there is extreme spread, one way I would measure it is The governor talked about counties that are high incident. Cuyahoga County is not a high incident county currently. If it would become high incident, we would see that Strongsville would go from that 34 cases, new cases in a single week to 100 new cases or what have you. The other thing that resonates with me is although these numbers continue to rise, within the school setting, we don't have those large numbers. Again, the 87 quarantine is a torch. It's a very large number. It's 4 cases of actual infection. The 87 is our commitment that we're not winking at the rules, that we're not trying to make exceptions, that we're taking it very seriously. If we have an infection and we do the contact tracing, and I'm going to give the kudos to Jenny and who is the?
Mr. Wingler and Jessica and Ms. Boydum, and then Mr. Griffin, they've been doing a phenomenal job with the contact tracing.
It is a lot of work. It is, it sounds easy on paper. You just find out who, all the touch points of people that any person who's infected has spent more than 15 minutes without any barrier, less than 6 feet. The number of the infections, a lot of them are sports related. Unfortunately, that sport related meant you have a lot of people that you've come into contact with that you were more than 15 minutes, less than 6 feet without a mask. So we do have a large number, but we have a small number of infections. I do believe we have good protections in place. I do believe we are managing it well. To use the phrase, we are learning to live with it as safely as possible. And again, I'm balancing the fact that our middle schoolers and our high schoolers continue to have a deficit of learning. And I agree, Seth, we need to discuss delivery model regardless. But at this point in time, I don't see it. Again, if I saw it spreading at the school, I would have a different opinion, but I don't see a large spread. Now, if that changes in a week, that changes in a week. Not only have we been cautious, we've been judicious, but we've also put in a plan to get back to school safely. We extended to hybrid. Our original plan was to be back in person much sooner. We extended to be a hybrid at the middle school and the high school for 4 more weeks than our original plan to give the high school and the middle school the time to adjust. I talked to my high schooler and he told me, Dad, we're all wearing our masks. Are they perfect on the distancing? No, but are they within those that 5 feet or what have you for more than 15 minutes with just disregarding it? No, they're taking it seriously. We do need to up our game, so to speak, because the numbers are troubling. But again, and we're talking to on the other hands, and I respect your concerns. I know you respect my concerns. Ultimately, we have to make a decision on how to go forward.
I think one of my concerns, you talk about the rate of new cases, and you stated yourself, Mr. Miko, that 2 weeks ago on the 2nd, there was only 12 new cases, and now this week there's 36 cases, which is 3 times the amount. So the rate that it's happening outside of the school is concerning. I think it would be blind of us to not consider that, understanding that, yes, the students are in the school, but there's a lot of teachers and that are actually obviously in the school as well, but a lot of family members that are outside the school system. I fully agree that having all the students back in the classroom in person is by far the best option for everybody, no doubt about it. We spent a large amount of time coming up with this framework and this plan because of the situation we're currently in. And for me, it's hard to not consider that, being that we spent so much time going back and forth, considering so many different options, looking at the surrounding cities, look at the surrounding, communities and counties, to look away from that at this point. While I understand it is a quick turnaround for families, I would even venture to say that middle school and high school families consider their education to be slighted right now because they are not back full-time in person. But I think they would rather have that than have their student be exposed.
Dr. Abbott, can you talk about what the middle school and the high school have been doing for the past 4 weeks to prepare for the kids to come back 5 days?
Sure, and if I missed anything that you'd like to talk about, please let me know. But, as we talked about the masks, the students are doing very well with the masks. There's been very little issue with wearing of the masks, and as Mr. Micko said, they're taking it seriously. The socially distancing, it's not perfect. In classrooms, in lunchrooms, in structured areas, we're at that 5 feet minimum as we've set for that. Coming into school, the more areas that have a little more freedom, there is less social distancing, but as I've shared with some community members, and Mr. Micko also reiterated, because that criteria is, 15 minutes within 6 feet, hallway passing time coming into school, they would not be a direct contact. So in terms of the environments where students would be a direct contact, we are doing very well. What they've been working through is preparing for this is at the middle school, they've had to figure out the commons area, the lunchroom area. High school already had a plan because they have larger amounts of space. So they've been working on that, and they've solidified a plan at the middle school of a schedule where some students will eat in the commons, some students will eat at the classroom. They can all be socially distanced. Obviously, we have to have our masks down when we eat lunch. So they've planned for that. At the middle school, they finalized plans. At the high school, I believe they're close, if not done already, in terms of allowing, they are done at the high school, I apologize for that, with allowing students to use their lockers at certain times, and how that will work with the rotation of students. Staggered bell schedules, they already had that at the high school. They're implementing that at the middle school for when students are moving outside of their pod and going beyond the classroom. The other thing we had to work on is some social distancing in classrooms. There's some classrooms, so let's take computer labs. Computer labs, we do not have the ability to move for some of those STEM-based or classes that have specific equipment. So we have, not only they're distanced as far as they can, but we have protective barriers between the students for that. Then what we also looked at is how can we take some of our classrooms that are larger classrooms and take some of our teachers that have those larger class sizes that maybe need 28, 29, 30 spots to be able to socially distance at 5 feet. So they went through a pattern to say, how can we rearrange classrooms to get larger classes into those larger classrooms so that we can have that socially distanced area. Then we looked at classes that were maybe close and a little bit over. And instead of 5 feet, maybe it was 4.5 feet. And we communicated that with our families on Monday so they knew those exceptions. And this was not necessary at the middle school, but at the high school, we still had some classes that were over the limit that would be at a 5-foot social distancing. And so we've developed a system at the high school where on a rotating basis, let's say the class can hold 27 students at 5 feet, and there's 29 students in the classroom. If all students are attending, they've created a rotation of students that would go to the auxiliary gym. They would live stream the class. They'd be able to collaborate with the other students or students that are there, and that would be on a rotating basis. So no more than one time a week would a student have to be out of the classroom getting live streamed instruction, but we believe in practice based on student absences that it'll probably be reduced to maybe once every 2 weeks. So in terms of the preparations, and I was on a call today with other superintendents and the Board of Health, that's what they're stating. Is, quality socially distancing in all aspects of what you're doing in a building, the hand washing, the masks. The one area where we, are not able to socially distance as much is the school bus. We have 2 students per seat. They're all wearing masks. They're still collecting data on ridership at the high school. to see how many students are riding. So I can't give you an accurate answer as to whether it's averaging 2 students per seat at the high school or whether it's 1 or what have you. But those are some of the preparations that have been going on at the high school and middle school level to prepare for in-person learning.
Thank you.
I guess for me, if we were already in school and this happened, I would say, yeah, let's ride it out, let's wait and see what happens. But it's like we're not in school, so, and I respect the fact that parents have to change. And I have a high schooler, she's a senior, and she wants to be in school, kinda. But we're not in school, so I see it as an easy wait and see type thing, to see how we trend. Because, I mean, if we were there already in school full-time and this happened, I'll say, well, let's see. Again, let's see what happens next week or the week after. But we're not in school, and then I'm thinking if we continue to trend up, we'll send the kids back to school and then have to turn around and take them out the next week or two. Because we're trending, it looks like things are not going good. And like one of our speakers said, if we all would stress wearing our masks and social distancing in our community, maybe that, would make things better, but here we are.
This is one of the things that I'm getting hung up on, is similar to yours, Sherry, is that if we're following the 2-week model, we would only have 1 more week of a county data point before we'd have to make another announcement. So we're looking at 10 days from now having to turn around and make another decision. And if it's red again next week, and I think that if the trends are showing, then there's a chance we'll remain red, we're going to turn around 2 weeks from now and pull them back out. Or we're going to disregard the chart entirely, which I guess we're finding out the limitations of setting any kind of chart. But as I'm looking at this, the thing that concerns me more than anything is the 1 week notice. I think that's what's getting us stuck. We are in a pandemic where things literally change hourly. And a week, as much as I need a week to prepare myself and my family to, make a change, I think the week is getting in our way. It's causing us to have to consider things we don't necessarily have to consider. So, I mean, the first thing that I think we should consider is, can we get rid of the week notice? We wouldn't be here if we hadn't had to give a week notice. I have no problem being here, but the point is we're going to be here again and again and again. So I think that's one thing we need to consider, and I do think we need to consider whether or not this is the chart we want to work from. And as some people have said already, we fiddled with this chart a lot, and it wasn't, I'm not saying because we spent time, therefore we should keep it. We fiddled with the chart so that we'd have a framework to go from. And what I'm worried about is if we give more precedence to the week than we do to the chart that tracks the risk level, I'm not sure what we do with the chart at all going forward. I think if we disregard it now, then we have precedent to disregard it again in the future. So that's where I'm stuck. And I don't know, Rich, how well you know the data. The one question I did have, and maybe you know, Cameron, is that one of the things we were waiting for the county to go orange the first time was a positivity rate to go under 5, correct? Mm-hmm. I'm correct in that it's still under 5.
Yes, I believe 3.8% as of today.
But yet that was a red marker against us on the chart. So that's where I'm stuck.
That was part, and Cameron, you correct me if I'm off the rails, but the 5% positivity rate wasn't part of the red level by the state. It was part of the framework that the County Board of Health came up with to recommend or not recommend in-person learning. And in their guidance, because they did not want it to be considered a mandate, but in their guidance, they wanted to see a sustained period of time where the positivity rate was below 5%.
Which it still has.
It is still, and there are areas in the state where it's trending up. But at this point in time, Cuyahoga is still, I believe, below 5%.
I don't have anything more to say at the moment.
I mean, we have, you know, and I don't want to, I am going to put you on the
I
spot.
know, I recognize that well.
But Cameron needs consensus to move forward. I don't, you know,
Well, I like the, about the week, it's like, that will work under normal circumstances, but this is a special circumstance where, who knew, like, I saw the numbers trending up earlier in the week, but who knew we would go to red? I didn't expect us to go into red, and when we did, I referred to the chart, and that's where we were. Like, even though the numbers were trending up, I didn't expect we would be in red now. So I think the 1 week, in my mind, we could, under this circumstance, it's emergency, that's why we're here, we can disregard that because health is more important.
The data comes out on Thursdays, and Cameron, your emails go out on Monday. So, Michelle, that's a great point in regards to the week. It's not feasible right now. It shouldn't be applicable because of when the two communications are coming. So maybe we change the communication, or do we just change it to a 3-day notice, 4-day notice, understanding that it's coming out on Thursday from the state, or do away with that and just communicate as need be?
I like it. I mean, I don't mind the 1 week. It's just that normally we could use the 1 week. But if we're flipping back and forth into these numbers and we go to our chart, like, we would like to give everybody a week's notice. And if this didn't happen, we would have given the parents a week notice. We would have went to school. And then my thought would have been like, well, let's see what happens. But
what I think has happened is that our best efforts to make a chart, the virus doesn't know how to read charts. And I don't see that it's going to learn how to read anytime soon. And so while I can sympathize and I appreciate the idea of adjusting this framework, my instinct is that anytime we have a situation where judgment is required, we're going to run up against our framework, which is what we're running up against now. So again, I'm comfortable saying, you know, we want this idea of having a framework so that we can just point to it and say, there it is. I don't think the pandemic gives us the ability to simply do that. I think we're going to have a judgment, and I think that's why we're on the board. Other school districts in the county are grappling with the exact same issues. Orange has chosen to go. Orange was going to go hybrid, and they have chosen to delay and remain completely remote. And some parents are happy about that, and some parents are vocally unhappy about that. And I think we all recognize whatever decision we make, we are not going to please everyone. But ultimately, we need to make a decision. Ultimately, we need to give Cameron direction. And it's, you know, like I said before, everybody's thought process is reasonable, but ultimately we need to make a decision, and ultimately we have 5 people so that we don't have a tie.
Oh, but do you have an opinion, Cameron?
My opinion is that I need clear guidance as to where we're going, and I'm not using that to skirt the question. We developed a framework so that we did not need to call a board meeting every time this color changes. So I think the point that a pandemic is going to need flexibility, we need to empower me with the flexibility to make decisions and implement the will of the board when it falls outside of a board meeting Thursday. And so what we do tonight, in my opinion, is a short-term fix to get us through what we're going to do next week. And then my recommendation is that we need to come back and have some sort of guidance, because I think we're going to be meeting every Thursday or Friday if we don't do that.
Fair enough, thank you.
Another thing, the numbers, Rich, you know the numbers. Right now, I guess in the county, our numbers are higher now than they were at the beginning of the school year, is that correct?
I don't know that off the
Okay.
top of my head. I'm looking at September. Let me pull the numbers up.
I'm just thinking if they are, then like we're in that spot where we made the decision to go remote at the beginning of the school year based on the numbers, and now the
We
numbers
made
are
the decision to go remote based on the governor.
of the seats, the Cuyahoga Board of Health.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you meant back in March.
Oh, no, in the beginning of the school year
Correct.
this year.
We started remote based on the guidance of the county, along with where we felt, how prepared we felt we were. The thing I keep on coming back to as far as Cuyahoga County is concerned is we're red, but we're in the bottom quarter of incidents. Yeah. The same way we tried to create a structure and a framework, the state tried to create a structure and a framework. And it's, it helps us take a temperature, but it doesn't make the decisions. And that's why we're here. But,
Do you know what the indicators were that put us into red?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what the indicators were that put us into red? Because I feel like
I
I'm
do.
missing some of those reasons too.
So our cases per 100,000 did go upper to 72.63 per 100,000. So indicator one, we met. Non-congregate settings, we met that. That indicator is over a 3-week period. And again, I look at a school as a congregate setting. And so our incidence is lower compared to non-congregate settings, which are parties or get-togethers, et cetera. They're not in a long-term care facility. They're not in a prison. Those kinds of things. They're in the community. That kind of spread. We met that indicator. Outpatient visits, we met. New case increase, we met. Emergency department visits, we did not meet, and this one, for my analysis, hospital admissions, we did not meet that one. And then ICU patients, we did not meet. So interpretation and how people look at this is very important. But we met it because, and the governor talked about this, we met it because we let our guard down. And we started to do things as people because, quite frankly, I think we're all tired of the restrictions. And so we didn't follow that, keeping our distance, et cetera. We got together. We had barbecues. We had all those different kinds of activities because I know I'm missing out on that kind of interaction. I think we all are. But those are the reasons that Cuyahoga County and the state, according to the governor, has risen, and why a lot of us are red, which for me, again, makes me feel comfortable that with the safety precautions we have in place, and recognizing that we do have a deficit of learning going on, that it just continues until we get back to school, I am comfortable with saying we need to, for lack of a better word, start. And if in a week or 2 weeks we have to pull back, we'll pull back.
Do you think that's more disruptive?
I think it's all disruptive. Honestly, I think
From a
that,
consistency standpoint of being able to say, hey, let's give it another week or two,
to be as
See where it's
cle-
at.
To be as clear as I can be,
Yeah.
and I've thought about it. We've talked about this, you know I've thought about it. To be as clear as I can be, if we go back for 2 weeks and then we have to go remote, it will seem like a foolish decision in hindsight. Lorraine County went from red to yellow. And they said they went from red to yellow in 2 weeks because they got rigorous about following the protocols. I don't have a crystal ball on what Cuyahoga County is going to do. If we go back to orange, it will be 2 more weeks of in-person learning for our students.
And we've talked a lot about numbers and framework and illness, and we really haven't talked about their mental health. You know, like I said, we haven't been in school for 5 days since March. I really, really am concerned. You know, we received emails today from parents who are concerned about their students and their mental health. I think if we can give them 2 weeks in person, that's 2 weeks. We can try to catch them up on some of the education that they have missed out on these past 7 to 8 months. Another parent said today, you know, we've given people options. We've given people options that want to stay home. We haven't given people options that want to come back. I've thought about that a lot today.
Do we need 3 for the consensus, or are you looking for all 5 of us to agree?
No, I think Cameron needs consensus. I truly believe in the deliberative process of the board. The reason we have 5 is so that when there is disagreement, we can come to a conclusion, and then we can agree that after the board makes that decision, we can go forward. If it makes everyone more comfortable, we can go through the formal vote. If it doesn't, we can give Cameron consensus.
Are we saying if we go back to school, and then next week we go into, we're in red, but if the spread increases and everything, we will still wait 2 weeks before we take the kids out? Is that what? Or we
That's
would
not
take
what
them
I'm-
out right away?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if it goes off the charts, I think everyone will be reasonable and we would be going remote. And we've discussed the deficiencies with hybrid before. And we do need to have discussion, not necessarily tonight, about things we can do as a school district to improve hybrid and the delivery. But, we've all discussed how can we make hybrid better if we're going to stay hybrid. But I know I've discussed that hybrid in my mind for a long period of time is very problematic. It's hard on our teachers, it's hard on our students, it's hard on everyone. But right now, we need to come to some consensus for Cameron to know what to do at the end of this meeting. Yes, I'm looking at you.
We need to try going back.
Okay. Do we need would you like to memorialize this with a formal vote, or are we comfortable with giving him the consensus as is? No. Sure, comfortable
Vote?
You want to vote?
to vote? Okay. So I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we return to 5 days in-person school, starting on October 19th.
The motion is that we return to 5-day in-person school for all grades, pre-K through 12, or is that reasonable, Cameron?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Mr. Anagnostou, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
No.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
No.
The motion carries. You have your consensus, Cameron. Is there any other discussion on our restart plan? Any other questions for Cameron? Cameron, do you want to give a short update on our surveys that we had?
Focus groups?
Focus groups, thank you.
Yeah, so we had, based on our conversation at the, prior to last board meeting, we shared that we would have focus groups for parents currently in the solo program. We had a little over 80 families sign up. We scheduled 6 focus groups, and so we've held 4 of those. We have 2 more on Monday evening. We've broken those focus groups up into similar experiences. So we have focus groups that are just solo 2.0 parents, focus groups that are the K-5 Lincoln Learning, the 6 to 12 Edgenuity Edmentum program, and then one of the focus groups is families that have students in a variety of the programs. So they've been extremely beneficial. I've had great conversations with our families throughout the last 2 days. What we're doing is we're compiling themes that we're hearing between the focus groups. And then at next Thursday's board meeting, the October 22nd meeting, I will have some recommendations as to next steps to help support and enhance the solo program, the different platforms that we have for the board. So I look forward to sharing the results of those focus groups with you next week.
Thank you, Cameron. Next on our agenda is executive session to consider the employment of public employees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mrs. Bissell. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Anagnostou.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
We will enter executive session at 9:15. We have no expectation for further business. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.